Hey gamers, grifters, and gooners, Fox here. I wanted to talk today a little bit about Ghost of Yotei, or as you can see from the title of this video, Ghost of No Way.
Oh yeah, baby!
I made a pretty innocuous post recently on X, formerly known as Twitter, but it has been renamed X, so I'm just calling it X, and for some reason, a lot of people get worked up over that. They almost get mad at me for calling the X platform X, because that's its name. Regardless, that's not the point here. What I was talking about is Ghost of Yotei, the fact that it just released. It is kind of a spiritual sequel, or more accurately, a spiritual prequel to Ghost of Tsushima, which a lot of people loved, including me. I bought it on the PlayStation 5, thinking it would never come to PC, and literally 2 or 3 days after I made that purchase, they announced a PC version of Ghost of Tsushima was on the way. So I went ahead and stopped playing the game. I hadn't got very far, and I knew that the better experience for me would be to wait and just play it on the PC, which I did. And although I didn't complete the game, I've spent quite a lot of hours in it, and am nearing the end if I ever bother to go back and play it. In my post about the recently released Ghost of Yotei by Sucker Punch Studios, I said, and I quote,
"Not everyone hyping and enjoying Ghost of Yotei knows the details behind the scenes. I know too much about Sucker Punch and the disturbingly bigoted and hateful conduct of Erika Ishii. I just can't play the game at this point. I can't reinforce such poor behavior by devs."
And I included with this tweet, rather post, we don't really officially call them tweets anymore, but that term I don't want to let go of. In this tweet I included a picture in which I took the Ghost of Yotei cover art and added to it one of those red circles with a line through it symbolizing no, and then I also had a hand show up from outside the frame indicating stop or don't. The clear implication here is don't get Ghost of Yotei. At least I'm not going to get it. Now, nothing in the text of this tweet indicates I'm telling anybody else what to do, and it's really not very judgmental. The first line says, "Not everyone hyping and enjoying Ghost of Yotei knows the details behind the scenes." I'm not saying that if they know the details, they have to not buy it. I'm also not saying that the people who don't know the details have somehow done something wrong. There are a lot of people out there that I'm going to refer to, and it's going to sound derogatory, but I'm just going to say it, normie gamers. The term normie generally refers to someone that's not really deeply connected to everything that's going on, and they're perceived as just being sort of a normal person out there who kind of blindly does what they do without really looking deep into it. A normie might be someone who believes, for example, that games are just games and every game is just made by the studio, and the studio is simply trying their best to make the game the best that it can be. And of course, those of us in the know who have dug deeper, who are on X looking at all this stuff, and maybe on YouTube watching videos by people, know there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that affects the quality of a game and the content that gets included in it. So the normie gamers may not be paying attention to any of this stuff and may not know anything about the drama behind Ghost of Yotei in the voice and face of the protagonist, Erika Ishii. And if you know anything about Erika Ishii, well, she's a Japanese woman who's become pretty well known in certain gaming circles now after being featured as the face and voice in Ghost of Yotei. But is she well known simply because of the game? Unfortunately, not. She's well known for being a radical, extremist, left-wing activist who doesn't hold back in communicating a lot of very controversial opinions. In addition to that, she has voiced open support for the violent domestic terrorist group Antifa, or however you want to pronounce it. Really, I don't care. It's a group that has a sort of misnomer title. The title is supposed to be anti-fascist. However, that's not actually what the group does. It's very much a left-wing radical activist group that relies on a variety of tools to try to coerce the government into making changes, try to disrupt public life, and lawful conduct by other people. And in so doing, Antifa is a domestic terrorist group by U.S. federal definition. The FBI had the definition of domestic terrorism on their website long before President Trump designated Antifa as a terrorist group. A group does not need to be formally designated by the president as a terrorist group to qualify as a terrorist group. The reason I say this is because people might want to claim that at the time that Erika Ishii gave her support for Antifa, it hadn't been formally declared a terrorist group. That's really irrelevant. A group of people committing crimes, including violence, assault, even up to murder, vandalism, arson, theft, and various other things to try to coerce a government into giving in to its demands and also to disrupt lawful public conduct is, by U.S. federal definition, a terrorist group. So, just to clarify, you don't need the president to formally declare it. A terrorist group is a terrorist group based on its actions, not based solely or primarily on a designation given by any particular politician. So what we have here is Sucker Punch Studios knowingly choosing a very controversial and contentious individual, a radical left-wing extremist activist who openly supports a violent domestic terrorist group, to be the face, voice, and motion capture actor for the protagonist in their latest game, Ghost of Yotei. And for that reason, and that reason alone, I would call this Ghost of No Way am I going to buy it or play it. But that's not all. Unfortunately, as most of you probably already know, there was a developer for Sucker Punch Studios who was working on Ghost of Yotei that was openly mocking the brutal murder of Charlie Kirk. Now, I have never watched any of Charlie Kirk's content. I'm certainly not a follower or a fan of his in any way. I didn't know a lot about him. I just knew that he was perceived to be a conservative. Many on the left will call him right-wing because most people, especially in America, have no clue what right-wing even is. They think of anything that's even slightly right of center politically is somehow right-wing. Regardless of all that, this developer thought it'd be funny to simply mock the family man's brutal murder, to mock a father's brutal murder, to mock a husband's brutal murder, openly on social media. That kind of behavior is generally considered pretty poor. It's in pretty poor taste, regardless of who was murdered. If somebody is straight up murdered in cold blood, it's pretty much always a bad idea to get on social media and broadcast that you think it's a joke or that it's funny, or to celebrate it, which is what a lot of game developers have done and people on the left. They've literally celebrated Charlie Kirk's murder. As you can see in this meme from a random account, this guy thought it'd be funny to reply to me with a meme picture of Charlie Kirk being murdered and implying that perhaps the same thing should happen to me. This, of course, doesn't represent everyone on the left, nor does it represent the people at Sucker Punch Studios. I don't know who this individual is, but he's not the first one to make a reference to Charlie Kirk's murder when talking to me in terms of trying to make it seem like maybe I should also be murdered.
What happened?
These guys, they just can't stand women in gaming.
What did they do to you?
They leveled up.
Oh no! Oh no!
Thankfully, Sucker Punch Studios did eventually let this employee go. Basically, terminated the employee, and I think that was the right decision. Many people on the left are now saying that the right is participating in cancel culture. Because, as we all know, no employee was ever fired from their job for making inappropriate comments before the left invented cancel culture. Because the left invented the concept of people being fired from their jobs. I'm being facetious. Obviously, that's not the case. Employers have always had the option and have terminated employees who have done anything that has reflected extremely poorly on them even if it wasn't directly work-related. Some people have commented about free speech and how we have free speech in the United States, and we do. However, free speech is a right that prevents the government from infringing upon it. You do not have a free speech right when it comes to your employer. You cannot walk into work, say whatever you want, and tell your boss, I have free speech. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, there is something he or she can do about it. They can fire you. And that's entirely legal and not a violation of any of your rights. So, long story short, given these factors, like I said, Erika Ishii's behavior just by itself, that's enough for me to look at a game like Ghost of Yotei and say, no way. I'm not gonna buy it. I'm not gonna play it. And a lot of people tell me, well, Fox, you gotta separate the art from the artist.
No, I don't think I will.
And, Fox, did you know, you're just missing out on a really good game.
Oh, I'm so scared.
I can't comment to whether the game is actually good or not. I know there are a lot of really high scores given by the faux game journalism outlets out there, the mainstream
games journalism,
which I don't trust at all, because most of them are not real gamers. They're just here because they couldn't get a job in a, quote, real, unquote, journalism field. Some of them want to go into political journalism or some other field, but they couldn't make it, so what do? They decide to settle for video game journalism, where they often talk about woke ideology, progressive messaging, transgender, gays, and all sorts of other stuff that really doesn't have anything to do with the game itself. It's all about injecting a message into the game. So when I go to Metacritic or OpenCritic, I'm looking for the user score. I am not looking at the professional score or whatever they call it on those sites. If it's a score aggregated from so-called professional games journalism outlets, I ignore that score completely. I consider it absolute nonsense. It's garbage. It's completely untrustworthy. I don't even take it into account. Completely ignore it. In fact, I'd love to get a browser extension that just erases that number from the website so I don't even see it, because I don't want to see it. It could only mislead me. So getting back to the separate the art from the artist, I have a pretty good feeling that if Sucker Punch Studios decided for their next game to utilize someone like, say, Nick Fuentes as the face and voice of the protagonist, I imagine a lot of people would be singing a very different tune. You wouldn't be hearing this separate the art from the artist. You wouldn't be hearing this, it's not a big deal, who cares? You wouldn't be hearing all these people saying, oh, well, Erika Ishii's post about Antifa, that was like 4 or 5 years ago. You wouldn't be hearing all these excuses and justifications. Most of these people trying to justify Sucker Punch Studios' very poor decision in including a very controversial, contentious, arguably violent terrorist as the protagonist of their game, yeah, bad call right there. But if they decided to instead bring in Nick Fuentes as the face and voice of their protagonist, I think we'd be hearing a lot from the left. We'd be hearing a lot from the woke. We'd be hearing a lot from some of these people who call themselves moderates, but always seem to fall on the left when it comes to these issues. They claim that they're not on the left, they're not on the right, they're moderates. But they always end up siding with the left. It's almost as if they're actually lefties who just want to deny it and pretend to be in the middle. To be honest, I would respect someone more for being on the left than riding the fence as a moderate. I don't respect fence riders. There's nothing to respect there. You're not taking a position, you're not taking a side, you're not taking a stand. You're just sitting in the middle, hoping that everyone can eventually learn to get along. Not going to happen. So effectively, sitting on the fence in the middle makes you pretty much useless because you're not helping to push things in either direction. Now, even if Ghost of Yotei is a good game, it has good gameplay, good graphics, good music, all sorts of nice mechanics, whatever the case may be, I don't know. And you know what? I don't care. There are so many great and good games that I have yet to get to, and there are more coming out all the time, that skipping Ghost of Yotei not only saves me money, but it saves me time for other games that I can play from other studios that don't so overtly hate me and people like me. If you make the decision that you're going to set aside everything you know about how this game came to be, everything you know about the developer, and everything you know about the face and voice of the protagonist, Erika Ishii, well, that's your decision. I'm not saying that's a bad decision. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying I'm not going to do it. And I got some very valid reasons why. A lot of people got mad at me in that tweet there. It really blew up. I've got so many responses, I can't keep track of them all. My notifications just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And as I scroll through them to read them, X likes to update them as I'm scrolling, making me lose my place. I don't know where I was, and now there's more. I can't keep track of them all. So this one hit the algorithm, so to speak. I hope this video hits the YouTube algorithm, and you know how you can help that? By liking the video, subscribing, hitting the notification bell icon, and leaving a comment down below. Whether you agree or disagree, I do want to hear your opinion, and I read every comment that you leave. I'm Fox with RealMarcFoxx, and I hope you'll join me here at the G3 Brigade and become one of us, the gamers, the grifters, and the gooners, because we're going to keep gaming, we're going to keep grifting, and we're certainly going to keep gooning. I will see you all next time.